They watched it cross into their sector with a mixture of disbelief and irritation. The readings were wrong, they told themselves. No species from that backwater could produce this kind of signal. It had mass, sure, but so did asteroids. Yet this object moved with purpose, steady, deliberate, unyielding. No registration, no identification, no reply to hails. The Galactic Council's defense grid flagged it as unidentified and incoming. Still, no alarms were raised. After all, it was from Earth. A few analysts chuckled. Let them play with their toys, one said. It's probably an oversized cargo hauler with delusions of grandeur. They filed a report and moved on until it reached the Kesseline barrier. The Kesseline barrier wasn't just a defense array. It was a message to all lesser civilizations. You don't enter uninvited. Layered with ion destabilizers, plasma minefields, and gravitic distortion webs, it stopped pirate fleets, rogue AI constructs, and even a rogue moon once. Nothing from a Tier 2 planet should have survived it. But this ship didn't just survive. It ignored the barrier entirely. The barrier lit up with defense protocols. Mines detonated. Beams fired. The gravitational field twisted to crush the intruder. And the ship just moved on, unscathed. A single pulse later, and the defense grid was gone. Its orbiting command satellites severed from power, their systems cold. No explosions, no drama, just silence. Deliberate, calculated silence. The council met an emergency session, more out of annoyance than fear. This was an insult. Earth had no right, no place, no means. Their military database on humanity was clear. Aggressive, yes. Inventive, always. But hopelessly under-equipped for true interstellar warfare. Primitive, reactionary, emotional. But then came the scans. High-energy sensors mapped the ship's hull. Alloy compositions didn't match any known standard. The energy output was wrong. Too high for its size, too stable for fusion, too refined for fission. The ship didn't have a conventional reactor. It had something else. Something that didn't spike or flare or leak. Just a constant hum, like the heartbeat of a Leviathan. They dispatched a first response fleet. Standard procedure. 43 ships. Dreadnoughts among them. The fleet commander was confident. "We'll make this quick," he transmitted. The warship didn't respond. The fleet closed in, formed a containment net, and demanded surrender. Again, silence. Then the warship pulsed. Not fired. Pulsed. It was not a weapon, not in the traditional sense. There was no heat, no visible beam. But every ship in the net lost power instantly. Systems shut down. Engines dead. Life support on emergency backups. They floated, drifting, powerless. A second pulse ignited every inactive weapon on those ships simultaneously, detonating them from within. Of the 43 ships, none survived. No escape pods launched. No distress signals sent. The warship continued. Panic spread faster than facts. Rumors painted it as a ghost ship, an AI gone rogue, a living construct. But one phrase kept appearing on secure channels, whispered in military enclaves and diplomatic corridors alike. It's human. The fear wasn't just from what the ship did. It was how it did it. No waste, no excess. Just precise, efficient neutralization. No demand. No message. No declaration of war. The message was a ship. World after world tracked its trajectory. It wasn't zigzagging or probing. It had a path, one that intersected with the council's seat of power. Every day, the margin of error narrowed. It wasn't random. It was coming straight for them. Inside the war ministry, simulations ran nonstop. They modeled its weapons, guessed its hull strength, projected hypothetical vulnerabilities. But all simulations ended the same way: failure. What rattled the analysts most wasn't the firepower. It was a design philosophy. Alien warships favored elegance, modularity, minimalism. This human ship was brute force wrapped in logic. Its frame was over-engineered. Triple redundancy in every system. Armor thicker than necessary. Shields layered like an onion. Its targeting systems, based on brief data exchanges, predicted enemy movements with unsettling accuracy. This wasn't just a ship built to win. It was built to end wars. And it was silent. They tried to talk. Every major species tried their language protocols, offered parley, peace, even gifts. Still, no response. The warship wasn't diplomatic. It was final. Theories emerged. Was it a doomsday weapon, launched in desperation? A rogue faction of humanity seeking revenge for some unknown slight? Had Earth finally gone mad and unleashed its version of judgment? But Earth said nothing. When direct envoys reached the Sol system, they were met not with hostility, but indifference. Earth's governments weren't answering questions. No confirmation. No denial. Only one repeating transmission beamed into the stars. Do not interfere. The Council tried again, this time with force. A task force of 7 elite fleets, including the famed Mazilian Ark Guard, was deployed. Collectively, they represented the apex of interstellar combat. Each fleet had faced extinction-level threats before. Each had emerged victorious. Their leaders were seasoned, their tech superior. They reached the warship outside the Helix Nebula. Their report lasted 7 minutes. The first 2 minutes showed approach. The next 3 showed escalating aggression, missiles, plasma coils, quantum disruptors. The last 2 minutes? Static. All telemetry ended in a sharp, narrow-band signal broadcast across known space. A simple binary pattern. When decrypted, it read, "Intervention rejected." In that moment, the narrative changed. No longer was the warship a threat from a lesser world. It was a reality check, a recalibration of power. Humanity had done what no other species had, built something that defied categorization, bypassed defenses, and dismantled entire military armadas without pause or regret. The worst part? Earth had never claimed responsibility. It was a ship without a flag, a destroyer without a name. Its only identity came from those who feared it, the human warship, and it was still coming. No detours, no hesitation, just purpose. Now, every system it passed sent silent, encrypted warnings to the next. Each one pleaded, "Brace yourselves," because nothing stops it, nothing slows it. It doesn't talk, it doesn't explain. It arrives, and when it does, the stars go quiet. The first planet it bypassed without firing a single shot was Torhan Prime, a fortified stronghold with 5 planetary rings bristling with orbital guns, and the largest regional navy parked in geosynchronous orbit. They expected a siege. They got a bypass. The warship ignored them entirely, and that somehow terrified them more. Torhan's high commander issued a frantic dispatch to the Council. "They didn't even look at us. What do they know we don't?" That question spread like wildfire. Systems along the projected path began evacuating. Entire trade lanes were abandoned. Supply chains collapsed. Piracy surged in the vacuum left behind, only to vanish overnight when the warship's sensors registered their presence. No one saw how it moved. No traditional propulsion flare, no ion trails, no warp bubble. Yet it moved with intention, crossing light years and hours, never altering course. It wasn't just coming for the Council. It was descending on them, like a force of nature, inevitable and silent. Internal divisions within the Council worsened. Some factions demanded total mobilization. Others urged negotiation, bribery, surrender. One faction suggested surrendering Sol itself. That proposal was not only rejected, but its author was publicly disavowed and later found dead in his private cruiser. The interior melted from within with no breach to the hull. And still, the warship advanced. A secret committee attempted to use predictive AI clusters to understand humanity's motive. The result was one line of output. Error. Behavioral models exceeded tolerance. Conclusion. Human action is not algorithmically reducible. That's when the fear crystallized. For centuries, the Council had relied on pattern recognition, on logic trees, on probabilistic frameworks. They believed every species fit a box. And for most, that was true, but not for humans. The models failed because humans changed the rules. Not for advantage, not for chaos, simply because they could. The realization that followed was brutal and simple. The warship wasn't a tactical weapon. It was philosophical. It was a message, an answer to a question the Council had meant to ask. Why was Earth ever underestimated? The answer was moving at 0.9 C toward their capital. The second-to-last line of defense was the coalition net. Over 700 ships, including war beasts genetically bonded to their crews, solar harpooners capable of dragging stars, and telepathic command networks with zero latency. It was the most coordinated interspecies armada ever assembled. They gave it everything. The warship didn't flinch. It absorbed fire no single vessel should have withstood. The harpooners launched plasma tethers into its hull, anchoring it to a microstar. The star destabilized. The warship remained. Every ship that tried to flank it was lost within seconds. Their targeting solutions were mirrored back at them, their cloaking fields inverted. One battleship tried to crash directly into its core. It vanished 2 kilometers out, disintegrated particle by particle with no detonation. The telepathic command web began to scream. Not metaphorically, literally. Thousands of command thoughts fed back into themselves in an infinite loop, until the network burned out and its members died, vessels drifting dead and blind. The net shattered. Of the 700 ships, 694 were destroyed, disabled, or fled. The 6 that survived did so because the warship didn't consider them relevant. Council footage showed a 72-minute blackout in which the warship simply hovered, doing nothing, watching, recording, or perhaps deciding. Then it moved again. That moment marked the collapse of Council unity. Dozens of minor species disconnected from the network and declared neutrality. Several moderate-tier empires announced their withdrawal from joint military service. A handful pledged allegiance to Earth outright, not out of belief but survival. They wanted to be last on humanity's list, not first. The whispers started soon after. Some said the warship was crewed by ghosts. Humans lost in forgotten wars, their rage fueling the engines. Others insisted it was AI, built by humans but abandoned, left to grow sentient in the cold void of the Oort cloud. One rumor suggested it wasn't a ship at all, but a human soul weaponized. But none of those ideas explained the precision, the restraint, the cold, terrifying discipline. Because restraint was the part that rattled the Council the most. The warship had not leveled the planet, had not broadcast ultimatums, had not unleashed extinction weapons. It could, but it didn't. It chose not to. That choice made every surviving leader on the Council understand one brutal truth. Humanity had reached a point where it no longer needed to prove itself. They could destroy the Council. They just hadn't decided whether they wanted to. The Council president summoned Earth's diplomatic relay station one final time. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for an explanation. The reply was 6 words long. You told us we couldn't matter. 6 words. 6 knives. Because that's what it came down to, wasn't it? Humanity hadn't been seen. It had been measured, cataloged, dismissed. It had been poked and prodded and ignored. And now it had sensed something that couldn't be ignored. Not because it was destructive, but because it was undeniable. The warship didn't rise in rebellion. It rose in response. And every calculation the Council had made, every slight, every manipulated trade deal, every skirmish dismissed as human aggression, they all came back now not with fire, but with presence. A presence they couldn't defeat. A presence they couldn't understand. And worst of all, a presence they couldn't escape. The president turned to the chamber. Silence. No more bluster. No more arrogance. Even the species with 6 mouths said nothing. One representative finally spoke, trembling. What do we do now? No one answered. Because for the first time in their long, luxurious history of power, the Galactic Council realized the war wasn't coming. It had already begun. And the only thing left to do was wait. The warship slowed as it reached the final boundary of Council space. Not because it had to, but because it chose to. It allowed itself to be seen, its full silhouette rising like a shadow against the stars. It had no insignia, no painted banners, no declared allegiance. Its presence was the only identity it needed. And for the first time, the Council saw what true fear looked like. Every available I was trained on it. Civilian channels were blacked out. Military minds flooded the data streams with observations, angles, speculation. None of it mattered. They had all seen the truth already. It wasn't a vessel designed for conquest. It was a monument, a floating doctrine forged in metal and silence. And it had been built for this single moment. No fleet dared approach now. Not even the fanatics. Not even the desperate. They all understood. This was not a final battle. It was the verdict. The capital was a ringed planet called Alaris, for, surrounded by countless defensive installations, a megalopolis visible from orbit, its airspace brimmed with satellites, decoys, fail-safes. The citizens, if they were still watching, did so in breathless silence. Nothing had worked. Nothing had even delayed the ship. Hope wasn't just lost. It had been made irrelevant. The ship held its position at the edge of the Alaris expanse, just outside the final defense radius. Then it transmitted, not to the Council, not to Earth, not to any known civilization. It transmitted to everyone. A wide band, open channel message flooded every frequency, every screen, every relay node from the inner worlds to the fringe colonies. It translated itself perfectly in every native language, without delay, without error. We remember being told we were too wild, too volatile, too late to matter. We remember the deals forged in our absence, the maps drawn without our stars, the courts where we were judged without voice. We remember how you reduced our survival to aggression, our resilience to recklessness, our curiosity to threat. Silence followed, not static, pure silence, as if the universe itself was waiting. We did not come to ask permission. We did not come to negotiate value. We came because we were told we did not belong. The feed cut, not jammed, not scrambled, ended. Those who had mocked Earth now dared not speak its name. The warship had spoken for it. A single vessel had brought the Council's most fortified space to its knees, and Earth hadn't lifted a diplomatic finger. It hadn't sent armies. It hadn't issued demands. It had sent one ship, and that was enough. Alaris, for initiated its last line of defense, Protocol Solstice, a failed deadly chain reaction meant to trigger a system-wide cascade of microsingularities. The goal was annihilation of the region, self-destruction before submission. If they couldn't win, they would deny the enemy the satisfaction of victory. The activation failed. The warship had already neutralized the triggers, not with brute force, but with surgical precision. The black holes never ignited. The charges never received their arming codes. The system's deepest secrets had been unraveled and disarmed long before Protocol Solstice had even been suggested. The implication was devastating. The warship had already been inside their systems, long before they noticed, long before they prepared. It had mapped their pride, their last resort, and rendered it meaningless. One by one, the defensive installations on Alaris were shut down, not exploded, not destroyed, simply turned off. Entire districts lost power. The orbital ring went dark. Surveillance arrays collapsed. Still, the warship did not fire. Instead, a capsule launched from its undercarriage. Small, elegant, barely the size of a drone. It drifted down toward the planet slowly, without escort, its descent unhindered. Council guards tracked it. Fighters were dispatched to intercept, but the capsule disappeared from all scans mid-flight. When it reappeared, it was already on the council chamber floor. No one had seen it arrive. No one knew how it breached the sealed structure. But there it was, silent, humming softly. It unfolded like origami, its panels peeling back to reveal a single object. A stone. Smooth, black, heavy. Beneath it, etched into an alloy plate, were the words, "You dismissed us. Now you remember." That was all. No detonation. No poison. No virus. Just a stone. A reminder. A reckoning. The chamber emptied in stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, the council had no quorum. No vote. No leader. No law. The warship waited one more hour in orbit, as if giving the galaxy time to understand. Then it turned, not toward another target, not to attack, but home. It accelerated out of the Alaris system, following a course that led nowhere near any populated worlds. Its engines were silent, its path certain. And just like that, it left. No one pursued it. They couldn't. Across the galaxy, empires that once looked down on Earth now included human names in their diplomacy logs. Trade agreements were rewritten. Human systems received unrequested aid, gifts, access to wormhole gates previously restricted. No demands were made by Earth. None needed to be. The galaxy had already been reshaped, all because of one warship, not because of what it destroyed, but because of what it didn't. Humanity had changed without asking permission, had advanced in silence, built something so far ahead of the known that it had become unknowable, and then, rather than conquer, they had simply pointed to the stars and reminded the galaxy, "We're still here." That stone remained in the council chamber, untouched, unmoved. It didn't glow, it didn't hum, but no one dared remove it, because now, when a new species entered the galactic stage, they were told the same warning, whispered in every academy, every senate, every war room. Do not provoke Earth. Do not test silence. And if the stars begin to dim, brace yourself. The warship was never seen again. Not in known space. Not along trade routes. Not even at Earth. It vanished into the dark, its presence lingering only in whispers and broken protocols. The galaxy kept searching for it. Some out of fear, some out of hope. But it left no trace. No orbit to track. No signal to intercept. And yet, the fear didn't fade. It deepened, because what haunted the council wasn't that the warship could return. It was the idea that it didn't need to. Across former council space, new alliances began to form, each one orbiting Earth, not by force, but by gravity of reputation. Species that once ignored or mocked humans now studied their history, translated their literature, reverse-engineered every scrap of tech they could find from the older Terran archives. They wanted to understand what they had missed, but they missed the most important part. It wasn't about the ship. It was about why it was built, not out of revenge, not even justice, but memory. For every explorer buried in forgotten wars, for every Terran diplomat whose treaties were torn up behind closed doors, for every human voice silenced in chambers where no translator was offered, for the slow humiliation of a people told they were too late to matter. That was the origin of the warship, not a decoration, a reminder. On fringe worlds, children played games pretending to pilot it. Merchants named their vessels after it. Cultural analysts speculated it had no crew at all. There was a continent of AI consensus, a self-contained civilization built to carry the emotional weight of a species tired of being patient. And yet Earth said nothing. It didn't brag, didn't demand tribute. It just kept doing what it always had. Building, learning, expanding, not outward, but inward. That silence made the galaxy nervous. Because now, when Earth did speak, people listened. An old mining dispute in the Zentari Belt, ongoing for decades, was settled in a single cycle after a human mediator offered suggestion. Not a threat, just a recommendation. The parties agreed within hours. A rogue warlord on the Outer Rim broadcast a challenge to Earth, demanding combat. He claimed no warship could frighten him. He disappeared the next week. No fleet was sent. No attack occurred. He was just gone. His followers never spoke of it again. A sector-wide arms race to develop an equivalent to the Terran warship began among several major empires. Billions of credits poured into classified shipyards. No rival vessel ever emerged, not because the technology couldn't be replicated, but because the will behind it couldn't be, because no one else had Earth's history. No one else had earned the silence they wielded like a blade. Within 3 cycles, the galactic economy reorganized itself around Sol. Not through conquest, but through caution. It became known as the Terran centering. Humans didn't build an empire. The galaxy revolved around them anyway. And that was the last lesson. The one the Council never expected to learn. Power wasn't projection. It was patience. Humanity had waited while the stars ignored them. Had endured dismissal, erasure, mockery. They'd watched species rise and fall, never interrupting, never retaliating. Until the one moment came where they didn't speak, they acted. One ship, no army, no demands, just presence. And now, no one could forget. Scholars across systems began to treat Earth's culture like ancient scripture. Philosophers quoted ancient Terran poets. Military academies required human history as core curriculum. One species even restructured their entire education model around a new guiding principle: prepare as if the warship is always watching. It didn't matter that it never fired. The restraint was a weapon. The galaxy had always mistaken humanity's quiet for weakness. Now, they saw it for what it truly was: calculation. And somewhere in that black silence between systems, the warship remained, waiting, not for vengeance, but for the next species to forget, because there would always be another arrogant voice, another empire convinced it understood the universe, another council drawing maps without consulting the ones who lived beyond their reach. And when that happened, when the forgetting began again, the warship wouldn't need orders. It would already be on its way, not for conquest, not to destroy, just to remind, because humans had learned something the galaxy had not. That presence doesn't need to announce itself, that the sharpest blade is the one never drawn, and that silence is the loudest threat of all.